My name's Anna, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do Prog76a. Alright, so the key with this program is to not overthink it and to read the instructions carefully. So, here's the instructions. I'm going to just briefly read through them. It's called number manipulation. Ask a user to enter some digit that they particularly dislike. The number must be a digit between 1 and 9, but your program does not need to check for this. Multiply it by 9, then multiply that result by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Note the absence of the 8. What do you find? The program should print out the entire multiplication as though you had done it by hand. Lastly, take your final answer and multiply it by 1000. Display this answer as well. Note the quotations in the final line. They should be printed as well. So our required statements here are assignment, input, and output. And then here's what our sample output's going to look like. Alright, so we're just going to work with this program one step at a time. So let's go with the first thing and open up BlueJ. Alright, so here's BlueJ. You're going to want to make a new project. And then here's the answer, but make a new class. So let's just call this Prog76a. Alright, so we're going to open up that. Alright, so here's this initial screen. You can go ahead and delete all this. So I assume your teacher's going to want you to put in things like program, version, author, date written, compiler, description, what I learned, and difficulties. So I'm not going to fill that out for you because you can fill that out on your own, but just remember to do that, otherwise you won't get full credit for your program. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and set up the general outline of the program. So we have public class Prog76a, and these are our constructors. Public static void main. So I'm not sure if you've learned this yet, but the reason we have the void main part here is that we can access it from anywhere. So it's not like a private. It's public static void main. I don't think you learned about this yet in your computer science class, so don't worry about it yet, but you'll learn more about that later. Anyways, so let's go back to our instructions. So, step 1. Ask a user to enter some digit that they particularly dislike. The number must be a digit between 1 and 9, but your program does not need to check for this. Multiply by 9. Alright, so let's think about what we want to do first. I'm going to just make some notes. Alright, we're going to need to use some sort of scanner to input the user's number. Alright? Once we have that number, we're going to need to multiply it by 9 and store it as something. After that, we're going to need to multiply that number by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. And then and store it. And then we're going to need to multiply that number by 1000 and store it, and then display everything. So that's our basic outline. Take a moment now and pause this video and try to figure it out on your own. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the first step. So, the scanner to input the user's number. So we're just going to go ahead and create a new scanner. And we can call it anything. I'm going to call it input. Scanner input equals new scanner, because we have not already declared it. And it could be from a file, but in this case, it's coming in from the system because we're asking the user to input it. So we're going to say system in. Alright, so now we know the computer's going to want the user to input something, but to make it more user-friendly, we need to tell the user what to input. So we can do a simple system out print line, a simple display. Enter an integer between 1 and 9 that you dislike. Just something straightforward. Alright, so that's how you do this part. The next part, multiply that number by 9. Oh wait, hold on, we still need to store the user's number. Okay, so how do we actually store it? Well, we're going to have to create a new integer because we're asking them to input an integer. So that would be int, and let's just call it I equals input dot next int. Now, if you wanted to have a double or something, you would say double I equals input dot next double, or if you were reading in, say, like a line of things, you could say string input dot next line or something. There's a lot of different commands you could use for the scanner class, but in this case, we're just going to use next int. Alright, so now we have I stored. Try to figure out the next step on your own now that you've gotten this far, and you can pause the video if you need to. Alright, so now we need to multiply I by 9 and store it. So since we have to store it, we're going to have to create another variable. I know the number's going to get pretty long since we're multiplying it by some big things, so let's go ahead and create a long. Let's call it A equals I times 9. There we go, we multiplied I by 9, and we stored it. Alright, you should be able to follow a similar process to do this step. So try it on your own. Alright, so I'm just going to call this one B, and that's going to be A, since we're multiplying the previous number that was already multiplied by 9, by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Remember the absence of the 8. And the last one we have to create is C. Or I'm going to call it C, just so we can go in order. And you can call these variables anything you want. B times 1000. So this is pretty simple, just some basic arithmetic storing variables. And now we have everything we need, and we just need to display it. So there's a lot of different ways you can display it. I prefer just to use system out print line. Let's just like make a new line there so it looks a little cleaner. Print line. And then I prefer just to use a bunch of spaces and then end that and then show I. So that's going to print the user's number, and we can go back to the Microsoft document and look at what kind of sample output they want. So here you can see this is the user's number. It shows that you multiply by 9 because you want everything to look like it was done by hand. And then you display the product, then you multiply the product by something. So that's basically what we're going for. Okay, here we go. So there we go. We're displaying the number, system out print line, do a bunch of spaces, and then you're going to show that it's multiplied by 9. And then the next part might trip you up because there's lines and it's not like a normal keyboard command, but I would just use either the hyphens or the underscore. Both will work just fine. And then spaces are not the only way you could do this. You could also use tabs. So each tab counts for 4 spaces, so you could do that. A tab is just backslash T, and then that'll give you some space. That also helps to line things up if you want to use it. I just prefer spaces since this is pretty simple display. Instead of using multiple lines of system out print line, you could combine all of these and just make a new line, and you do that by doing \n. So it depends on what you want to do. I'm going to give you a moment now, and you can try to have all of them print out on your own. So you can pause the video if you need to, but try to get it all printed out nicely on your own. Remember, this is the display you're going for. You should print out I once, A once, B once, and C once. Alright, so now I'm going to reveal the answer to you, and if you have not yet finished, go ahead and take a moment to do that. Okay, so let's see, I'm not going to bother printing out everything else right now. Let's compile that. Enclose string literal, gotcha, got it. Alright, so I'm just going to we can handle all this printout line stuff on your own. It shouldn't affect whether the program compiles. So let's compile it. And we realize we have an issue. Alright, so this is my mistake. We cannot find class scanner, and that's because you need to import scanner in the utility package. So we do that simply by saying import java.util, and then we use an asterisk to show that we're importing the entire package. We could also just do scanner, and that works too, but it's just easier to use an asterisk so you don't have to import a bunch of things. And now it compiles just fine. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you my answer. So here's what I wrote before, and then I have all my stuff up here. And then this is the display I used. So let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. Alright, so enter an integer between 1 and 9 that you just like. Let's use the same one as the sample output on the Microsoft document, so 9. And it works. So if we look over here, this is what we wanted to get, and this is what we got. So that's the same thing. Depending on whether you use spaces or tabs, you might want to adjust your spacing a little bit to make it match up so it looks nicer, but that's pretty much how to write the program. I hope you learned something. Okay, bye.